Good evening, friends, wherever you are. I notice some people are over in India, whoa, and other places far and near. And welcome to the first ever Cichlids and Suds. And tonight's beverage of choice is a Stella. And I refuse to drink Guinness except when it's on tap in a pub in Ireland. Became a complete snob while I was in Ireland. It really is different, and it tastes like nothing I've ever tasted before. And it's very, very good. But Stella will do. And this is in no way an encouragement that you drink alcohol or work on aquariums after drinking alcohol. Please don't do that. And definitely don't drive after drinking too much. So, sound is good. Thank you, Denny. I appreciate that. Denny is one of the moderators here. Thank you for being here, Denny. I think I saw another moderator around. And John, I think John is around too. And cheers to you, Davey. And Joshua, cheers. And I tell you, I am, it is 6 hours ahead where I came from. So it would be about 1 a.m. where I was. And so my body is still recovering from the trip, a little bit of jet lag. And what's making that even more fun is that my baggage never arrived. So, fortunately, my camera was not in my bag, and but they told me yesterday. I arrived on the 4th, and they told me yesterday the bag was supposedly still in Dublin, but they were not sure. So I'm gonna have to go out and do a little shopping, and buy things like shaving cream and underwear. And I mean, that bag was just full. I mean, a 10-day trip. You can imagine how much stuff I had in that suitcase, right? So it's great to be back. Great to be back in the States. I loved being abroad. It was great seeing my son, my future daughter-in-law, and my daughter, who's my youngest daughter, who surprised us and showed up at the airport and on the way to London. So that was very, very exciting. So it was a great trip, just a wonderful trip. And anyone who tells you that you can't find good coffee or good food in places like Ireland or England is completely full of it. It was wonderful everywhere, and that together with the small towns, the countryside was amazing. But what made it very, very special was the people. The people were very, very sweet, very friendly, and I absolutely fell in love with the UK and with Ireland and everything up there. So at any rate, it was just wonderful, and I'm glad to be back. I couldn't wait to get get back with you. And despite being a little bit jet lagged, I said, okay, let's go ahead and do a live stream on a Wednesday night. So let's take a look here very quickly at who is aboard Rob's Aquarium. And let's see. Welcome to the stream, Rob. And Pony Girl, thank you for clarifying that. I know we have a conflict with some live streams tonight. One of my favorite live streamers, had the pleasure of meeting him and his wife, Jason, Joanna. Primetime Aquatics are on tonight. If you get bored with the live stream, jump over to Primetime, and you will not be disappointed. They're a good couple. And Sundar's here from India. Very, very good. 6 a.m. there. Wow. Thank you for getting up early and showing up. Appreciate that. And hello, Chris G and B Wood. And let's see. Hey, Frank. ¿Cómo estás, amigo? Mucho gusto que estás aquí. And let's see. Joshua, Davey, Larson. And I never get to everybody. Otherwise, I'd just be naming names for the entire hour. And you folks started some car. Hey, Trenton W is here. Hello, Trenton. And Texas Fish Room. Hope you're doing well there, sir. Hope it's not as hot there as it is here. It broke 100 at one point here today in Nashville, And when you add in the humidity, that is excruciating. And STL Consulting. Are you a consultant, STL? I consulted for 33 years in the small business, primarily dental and CPAs, business owners, consulted them for 33 years. That was my career before becoming a full-time YouTuber. I'm retired, actually. I'm not a full-time YouTuber. Cat Sailor in the house. Hey, and Paul Newman, Fishaholic is here. Hey, Fishaholic. Great YouTube name, by the way. And, okay. So let's go ahead and, what do you say? We do the, let's do the official start of the stream. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see, be sure to hit that sub button and the bell and thumbs up. Let YouTube know that something good is going on, and they'll continue to promote the channel, and we'll continue the steady growth we've been going through. And I think the next big milestone is 50,000. I thank all of you who have subscribed and helped us to reach that. Very, very appreciated. So a big shout out to, of course, the best moderators on YouTube. And also a big shout out to the channel sponsor, the Cichlids Shack out of Tempe, Arizona. If you want some quality fish or products, use the discount codes that he created for me, and that is Shack Attack 10 for products and Shack Attack 15 for fish orders over $100. And you can't go wrong with the Shack. All the cichlids you see in the tank behind me are part of the Shack Attack, so he will not let you down. And if you want to know more about the Shack, watch my video on, I think it was a live stream where I played a video on my walkthrough, and I think it was called Why I'll Never Own a Fish Store. It really is a crazy schedule. It's a 24-hour a day job, really. Something needs to be handled. If there's a leak or an equipment malfunction or a shipment of fish coming in at 10 p.m., and they need to be acclimated and put into tanks and unpacked, and you're working till 3 in the morning, it doesn't matter. So it's quite a career, not something that, but I admire anyone that does it, and certainly Mr. Largo is all in. So another quick shout out to those of you who have become Patreon members. That is a way to support the channel on a monthly basis with a monthly amount. And these are what I call the founding Patreon members. Thank you to all of you for doing that. It is very appreciated and is helping me with the ongoing costs of content creation. So thank you for that. And so that's it on the, well, wait a minute, one more. If you want to get T-shirts and coffee mugs and stuff like that, maybe I'll come up with a beer stein, depending how Cichlids and Suds goes along. Visit Teespring, and also use the Amazon link. Use the Amazon link if you would like to buy something from Amazon. That helps the channel as well. So there you go. That's it. We are now commercial free. So hey, Trenton. Thank you so much for that. And it looks like he put a little emoji on there, some kind of cartoon, like he's laughing to death. So, my favorite people are people with a sense of humor. Those are my favorite people. So let's take a look here at what's been going on. If you saw my video 10 days away, and I thank all of you who watched that. That video got a lot of traction right away. It was shot, with my iPhone, just walking around, and it was just sort of a rough cut. And I tried to do a little bit of polishing, editing on it, but it gave you a look at what was going on here in the fish room when I got back, and I was very, very happy with what I saw. A lot of the time I put in doing the filter maintenance 2 or 3 days before leaving, and then the water changes a day or so before I left. All of that paid off. I came back to some healthy fish and to some tanks that were in pretty good shape. The I do have to report, though, that the eye biter, and if you saw him in that video, in the 10 days away video, you saw that he he wasn't looking that good. And he has been a struggle for me from very, very shortly after I first got him. He's been a challenge, trying to get him to eat, and I put him through several rounds of parasite treatment, paracleanse, and I had him on some other medicines at the end there, pretty concentrated dose of what is in Furon or General Cure, but sort of a pharmaceutical grade that I picked up from James over at the Cichlids Shack, and he didn't make it. I mean, he just didn't make it. So he was still alive when I got home, and I gave that little tank a water change. I pulled the Coingi out because the Coingi looked like he had fattened up and gotten pretty strong again, and his fins were looking perfect. So he recovered from whatever altercation he had back here, and he's doing great. He's eating, looking great, colored up very nicely. But the next morning, the eye biter was upside down. So I'm going to pick up, I think I'll pick up an eye biter, a Fusco, a Buccochromis notitania, and maybe a white lips, maybe a starry night, and put them in the 55 behind me, and have them get acclimated and QT them in there, and then move them over to the 300 when the 300 gets up and running. So that's sort of the plan at this point. Just add those fish, because if I add them all at once, there'll be so much confusion that they'll probably forget about hierarchy and territories and things like that, and everybody will get along. I'm a little reluctant to mess with things. This tank, all things considered, is a peaceful tank, and it's hard to believe that I'm even saying that as a African cichlid owner, but that tank behind me is relatively peaceful. I do have some chases, and sometimes I'll watch a replay of a live stream, and right as I'm saying something like, "Oh, this tank is peaceful," another fish harpoons another another fish will nail another fish just to make me seem stupid. But at any rate, let's see if let me see. We got some more folks here. What do we got? Window liquor number 5. Oh boy, it drives me to drinking. So, hello, window liquor number 5. I don't know who comes up with these names, right? And if you have any questions about anything, that's more or less the whole purpose of this evening. I'd like to go ahead and answer your questions. If you have any questions about the trip, I mean, I went to a store in Dublin called Seahorse Aquarium, and I had the pleasure of meeting Dalen, the owner of the store, a very very Irish individual, and an absolute sweetheart. Apparently, based on the press releases that I saw, he's one of the first folks, if not the first, to successfully breed seahorses in captivity. That's his claim to fame. He's a marine biologist, and he has this store, and it has it's a beautiful setup, and just a great team. The staff were all very friendly, coming up and talking with me and explaining things and walking me around and giving me a tour. And when you see the store, it's not the largest store in the world. It's not as big as Ocean Floor, and certainly not as big as that one that I think I just saw one that Corey did in Germany. That was like the size of, I don't know, the size of the Superdome or something. Massive size of a football, larger than a football field. But very, very, very cool shop, and very conscientious about how they filter their tanks, and just very knowledgeable. Answered all my questions. They took me behind the scenes where the public doesn't go. I'll show you just a little clip, And it's not, I don't have any sound on it or anything. It's just a little clip, and I'll play it for you, and I'll sort of narrate it. This, if you can see it, this is one of the planted tanks that you see when you walk in. So this is the, right when you first walk in the shop, there's this planted tank. It's got a CO2 system on it. He keeps Amazonian type fish in there, so it doesn't matter if the CO2 is, lowering pH. Look at the how healthy those plants are. And he broke it all down for me. He had the OACE canisters, 2 of them under there. Those are the ones with built-in heaters. And I'm not sure if this one, I think the one on the right was the OACE. And we had 2, it's running it off of these 2 canisters, and he has a very large CO2 tank under there as well. I'm not personally, I'm not too crazy about filters that have built-in heaters. You can see the big O2 tank there. I'm not too crazy about the CO2. Too crazy about tanks with heaters built into them, only because heaters can fail and things of that nature. So I think it's just it's maybe making things compact that maybe shouldn't be compact. That's just my opinion. I haven't owned a canister. I've never run inline heaters or canisters with heaters in them, but it just seems to me like it's just something else that could possibly go wrong. So I'd prefer to keep them separate. A little seahorse that he has in a tank this is also at the entryway of the shop. This was the gentleman that gave me a tour of of a section behind the shop where they will custom build an aquarium for you. And so you tell them what you'd like. Look, I'd like of course they're metric over there, but you can tell I want a 6.5, wide. I want it 2 feet front to back. I want it 3 feet tall. They'll make it for you. And they'll also then custom make the sump for it, and also go ahead and make the stand. So there's a heck of a lot more. I'll go ahead and I'll put together the video. Not sure if I'm going to release it as just one video, because there's the freshwater section, there's a massive plant section, a coral section, and saltwater section that is amazing. He's got there's a lot, and then there's the behind the scenes of where they quarantine the fish, where they treat fish that need like medication, things of that nature, and like their hospital tanks and a lot of other stuff that the public doesn't see normally. So I may break that video up into sections. We'll see how long it goes. Sometimes folks are reluctant to jump into a video that's over a half hour, I've noticed on YouTube. And I really appreciate you folks hanging in there for so long on these live streams. But he's got, anyway, so watch for that video. It's the Seahorse Aquarium, and it may come out in sections and parts, or maybe I'll do one video and I'll put timestamps on it so you can see what, where you can go right to where you want to go. You want to go to corals, you want to go to saltwater, you want to go to African cichlids, freshwater, community, freshwater plants. You'll be able to just use the timestamps and jump to it that way. That might be the best way to go. So, John, 10 days, it's interesting you ask that, because 10 days is, it was enough. I mean, 2 weeks probably would have, maybe 3 weeks, but then your anxiety level about what's going on with your tanks goes up, and it's not cheap. It's not cheap. I mean, even though my son was helping to cover a lot of it to get us out there to visit, he covered the tickets for the Eagles concert. We went to see the Eagles at Hyde Park in London. But we had to cover that. We stayed in a his place was a little small, so we ended up going and staying in a hotel, and the meals and the cabs, right? The equivalent of Lyft. Out there, they have an equivalent of Lyft, which is just their general cab service. I mean, it's very expensive on a daily basis. So, yeah, longer might have been better, but 10 days was enough. We were pretty much ready to come back and sleep in your own bed, as they say. And even though it was amazing to travel around and see. I mean, I drove by a church that the fellow said was 1600s, but it was built around a shell of a church from the 1400s. So, I mean, just to think that, for hundreds and hundreds of years, people have been going to this church and worshiping, or, next door to the church, there'd be a pub that, has been around since 1780, or, just amazing stuff. Just amazing stuff. And thank you, Chandra Kekhar. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for that super chat. Much appreciated. For those of you who don't know what a super chat is, it's a way to throw a little money at the channel, and I appreciate that when you do it. So any other questions? Go ahead and throw them at me. I'll go ahead and scan the chat and see what you got going on. And let's see. Michael, you're my hero, buddy. I'll be honest. I'm not sure if I'd get up at 2 a.m. to watch a live stream. You are my subscriber hero. As the 2 a.m., 6 a.m. over in India. That was a 2 a.m. My hat's off to you, my friend. Let's see, 104 in Texas with a 110 heat index. Texas Fish Room. Wow, that's hot. Hey, Rob Bear from the San Francisco area, a Oscar keeper. Rob, what I might be doing with the tank that's over my left shoulder here. Go to you. That tank right now it's a 55 gallon, and all it has in it is a little green tear that's about I don't know, maybe just about around 2 inches. So, what do you do with that? Well, I think I'm going to put some fire mouths, maybe a fire mouth. I don't know if I want to go with more than one, because I know when they start to breed, they get kind of crazy, but maybe put a fire mouth in there. I'd love to get a lemon Oscar, possibly an albino lemon, certainly a red tiger Oscar, just some little guys, 3 inch, 2 inch, and put them in there. A friend of mine here in Tennessee has a 4 or 5 inch electric blue Ochart. He's offered to bring it to me. So maybe throw that one in there. And because he's so big, he'll probably be able to be fine with those Oscars, smaller Oscars, and the small green tear. And that's where my Oscars will go. I've just, over time, I never thought I'd be interested in owning an Oscar. And I think maybe that was because when I was a kid, it was primarily, feeder fish, and it seems like the quality of food has gotten so much better now that we can use things like flakes and pellets. Didn't mean to scare you with my big face. You ever go take a picture and you forget that you had your camera on reverse, and when you go to take the picture, it's your face? It startles you. At any rate, but now, just over time, and having spoken with so many Oscar, people, my interest has gotten piqued, and so I think I do want to be an Oscar owner. So, Rob, maybe I'll ask you for some tips at some point. And let's see here. I'm scrolling. I'm cruising the chat. Fishaholic, yes, I was gone. That's why there wasn't. I had made some announcements and also posted some things on Instagram and Facebook, but not everybody is on those platforms. But yeah, I was gone for 2 days. I had, as you noticed, I had pre-recorded some videos that were then set up with what's called a scheduled posting. So they would just go ahead and become available at a scheduled time. So I did some of those while I was gone, which is kind of a nice feature with YouTube. You can put a lot of stuff into your uploads and then just schedule them. So you being gone could be actually transparent to your subscribers. And that would allow YouTubers, of course, to take a long vacation if they wanted to. But of course, that's not possible. It's not possible when you're dealing with live critters like I have, right? So yeah, that's why I was gone, Fishaholic. And let's see what's up, Anthony. What's up? No, no. Now I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Is it noise or noez? Noise or noez? Give me a phonetic spelling on that, would you? Media Productions. The update, I will go ahead and be posting some videos on that. As of right now, it's completely set up. I have the two Shisei pumps on the left side. I have the I'm going to be using, I think, a 7-inch sock on the right side of it, so the aquarium will dump into the right side of the 40-gallon breeder. The water will then get pulled through the 14-inch tall, 4-inch wide, those three large sponges, those Matin sponges from Swiss Tropicals, and then the water will then roll over that mountain of media that I picked up from Sarah, and then the water will be pumped back up to the tank from the two Shisei pumps. So the sump, very, very simple sump is set up, and it's just a matter of doing a little bit of gluing for the plumbing, and then water testing everything, and then we'll be pretty much good to go. I still have to select what I'm going to do about substrate. I might move over some of this substrate since it'll bring with it so much beneficial bacteria, right? So maybe pull over this substrate and bring it over, maybe half of it, and then add some carob sea sand. Maybe just add some sand, maybe some black diamond blasting sand, and just maybe reduce some of the aragonite that's in there right now, because it's a lot of aragonite. And of course, if I bring the South Americans over to this tank, they don't necessarily need that, even though the KH in the water here is ridiculously low. It almost tests out near zero. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have some minerals even in aquariums that don't necessarily require a high pH, because the KH is so low. It's very strange. I can get this tank operates at around 7-8 to 8 in pH, and KH is always tests out low on the scale. So anyway, I'll probably bring over some of this substrate. I like those rocks, how they blend with that substrate. So maybe keep that combination into 300. Then probably add that giant piece of driftwood that I discussed in our prior video. I've got this massive piece of driftwood. I'll probably have to cut it down a little bit and then put it in here with the South Americans, and that'll look pretty good. And then I'll have the problem of how am I going to be filming, right? Or how am I going to be doing streams with the 300 behind me or with this tank? So anyway, I'll probably end up getting several cameras, and then we can just kind of go from different angles, and I can turn sometimes, and you'll have a different tank behind you, and that sort of thing. I run into that now. I mean, right now I can have this as a backdrop, even though other times, I like sitting. I like sitting so you can see the 90s sometimes, because I think that's a very interesting tank. I think the fish in it, just this here, odd angle. So anyway, I just think the fish in that 90 are really, really cool. That red shoulder, certainly that big vieja, that Salvini is just nuts. I just mean color-wise, he's nuts. Relatively calm compared to the stories I've heard about Salvinis. He seems relatively calm. The Nicaragua has her moments. The Jack Dempsey is she's just a dream fish. I just love that fish. super mellow Jack Dempsey. But, you know, as you know, the meaner, the more aggressive fish traditionally in this tank, right? The Vieja, the Jack Dempsey, the Nicaragua, the Salvini, those are the ones that'll come out to the 210. And then the Geophagus and the Hecali that's in there, they'll stay back in the 90. And then I'll add, oh, there they go. The Geos love going after each other. Geophagus suryaminensis. The red shoulder will stay back. All right. All right, let's see what else is on your mind here. So anyway, John, 10 days was probably the perfect amount because I think it was time to go home, and we had run out of money anyway, so. Okay. Fishy Dior, if the footage is good, I'll stay for a long vid. Yeah. You know, people do. I do that too. I mean, if I'm watching something and it's entertaining, there just seems to be a general consensus on YouTube, and maybe that's just, you know, in a sort of a TikTok world that people don't like to stay for long, you know, long content. You know, they're doing those shorts now. They're like 1 minute, and but yeah, you know, if you remove from the equation live streams, probably some of my videos are probably some of the longest. I mean, I put out 20-minute videos, 30-minute videos, and a lot of fish YouTubers usually are in that sort of 10-minute area, So I tend to stretch it with 20 and 30-minute videos. And one of the things that YouTube looks at is what is called retention time. How long were people watching the video? And that's really important to them for whether or not they recommend the video. So there's all kinds of things going on. But you're right. If the quality is good, if the topic is interesting and the quality is good, yeah, definitely I hang in there, as most people I'm sure do. That's a good point. And hello, Crypt Keeper. Crypt Keeper Aquatics. Now, are you named after that Crypt Keeper that used to host that? There was like a horror show program that used to be a creepy program. They had the Crypt Keeper. He used to host that show. Hey, GP. Yeah, you and me both, buddy. I can't wait for that 300. It's just been a little bit slow because of everything going on, and certainly my trip right in the middle of it. So yeah, it's gonna get there. And when it gets there, it's going to be so much fun. And maybe I'll snorkel in it. And let's see. Fishy Dior, did you see anything there you haven't seen here? Now, Fishy Dior, are you referring to the fish shop I visited, or just in general in Ireland and throughout, you know, and London? I mean, are you referring in general or in the fish shop? I'll tell you one thing. While maybe you're writing your answer, I noticed one thing very interesting about aquarium stands. They seem to be going in the direction of using an aluminum frame with adjustable feet that then has wood, built into it, so it looks like wood, but it's actually very, very thick, wide pieces of very strong aluminum. And it was very interesting. I was talking to the aquarium builder over at Seahorse Aquarium, and he was saying, look, a tank can go 10 years or more, but a stand can actually start to have serious issues when it's made of wood after about 5 years. So your aquarium can actually outlive your stand. But if you use a stand that has some type of a steel structure, some type of a reinforcement in it, you'll never have to worry about the stand. You'll be able to replace the aquarium in 20 years and use the same stand. So I did come across that. I did see a lot of use of steel, both in the stands that were on that were supporting display tanks, and also the stands that were being sold were steel or I believe just a very strong aluminum reinforced type stands. And I think I saw those types of stands in Corey's video to that very large store in Germany. I think I saw steel or aluminum reinforcement in the stands. So they use a combination of materials of both wood and metal. So I did see that, and I thought that was interesting. Anthony, did I smuggle any scotch? No, I didn't bring any scotch. My wife did love the gin in Ireland. She thought was very good. She liked the gin as much as I liked the Guinness. So, at any rate, and again, this live stream is not an endorsement or an encouragement for alcoholic consumption. So let's see here. Any other questions you want to throw at me? Now is the time. And I told you, Chandra Sekar, thank you for that chat, super chat. Chris G, your Oscars will grow extremely fast. That is something. That's one of the reasons why I want to get them small, and then I can always bring them over to the 300 in phases, right? Like bring the Oscars before I would bring the Jack Dempsey, for example. So I'm sorry, before I bring the Green Terror or the Firemouths, right? Let them grow at their rate, and then bring the Oscars over when they're, I imagine when they're about 5 inches. They'd probably be ready to throw in with everybody else. I threw the chocolate cichlids in to the 90 when they were about 4 inches, and they did fine. Nobody bothered them. So Chandra does have a question. Sir, I want to grow African cichlids faster. Any tips? Lots of love and respect from India. Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate that. And it always comes back. It always comes back to the same basics every single time. Fresh water, right? Do your water changes. Do the work, like the saying goes. Do the work. Provide them with lots of fresh water. Feed them, perhaps in smaller amounts, but 3 times a day, maybe, so that you end up with a little bit. Feeding just a little bit extra. I'm not into what they call power feeding, where you're just feeding, like jamming them full of food, because you're going to end up with bloat and blocked intestines and trouble. But feed them. But more importantly than how often you feed them, be sure you're feeding them good quality food, and and give them variety. You go, if it's available where you are, get a hold of Extreme, get a hold of Northfin, get a hold of a Piscine Energetics, get frozen krill, things like that, and a couple times a week, give them a frozen krill as a treat, and watch them go crazy with that. And stay on top of your filter maintenance, test your water, and they'll grow. They'll grow as fast as they can grow. And what impacts growth? Well, water quality, diet, the care you're giving them, right? Oxygen, make sure they have plenty of oxygen in the water, lots of surface tension breakup, right? And make sure they're well oxygenated, so they're not struggling. They're not having to, or like work too hard to breathe, right? And otherwise, yeah, it's just basics. Those basics. Now you also have to look at the genetics and the stock of the fish that you bought. So if you have fish that have a strong genetic line and come from a line of fish that are large for that particular type of species, then yeah, you're going to get some better growth. I'll give you an example. I've had Venusis that have put on size comparable, to what Chris, what Chris said about the Oscars. I mean, I've had Venusis that just blew up. And I've had Venusis, like the one I have now, that is growing very, very slowly. Just a little bit of time. Now, some of that might be because of the tank mates. If they're subdominant, that could be causing some stress, and that might impact it. Again, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, right? It's a fluid situation, so stay on top of your water parameters, give them the best possible. One of the things that what they kept telling me over at the Seahorse Aquarium was, we don't take care of fish, we take care of water. The fish, they're great. We have to take care of water. That's really what we have to watch. We have to make sure that water is right, and get it as close to their optimal. Get that pH cage, get as close to optimal as you can. Don't shock them with a lot of chemicals and pH up, pH down chemicals that are added and things like that. You just kind of keep it smooth, but try and get them as close as you can to optimal conditions. And I guess that would be my advice. Watch the stress. Certainly, if there's a lot of aggression in the tank, act quickly, because that kind of stress, of course, inhibits the fish from showing color and maturing and things of that nature. All right, let's see here. GP, I just received my second big fella pellets, and so are they different in size, GP, or color? How are they different than the previous? That the big fella is a type of pellet that is put out by Extreme, and they probably are. I know that from watching the video of the fellow who created the formula, I know they're always tweaking and working on making it better and improving ingredients and adding a little more of this or a little bit less of that. So if the color is different, that wouldn't surprise me. If the size is different, then you're getting a different millimeter. I mean, yeah, that would be a surprise. Now, an interesting comment on that. When I was talking with James over at the Cichlid Shack in Arizona, he mentioned that he would feed even the big fish the peewee pellets, the small pellets, because he felt they would become saturated with water faster and be easier to digest, whereas the bigger pellets might take a little bit longer to become soft, and if they shove a whole bunch of them in their mouth the way cichlids do, you could end up with a little bit of maybe a little bit of blockage. So I thought it was an interesting point. I've been feeding big pellets to the bigger fish for a very long time. I don't pre-soak them, and I've never had an issue. But I thought that was a very interesting point that he made. I know that Adam C., if you haven't checked out Adam C.'s channel, check out Adam C. I know that he likes to soak the pellets for a little while before feeding them, and he thinks that that's the reason why he hasn't had to deal with bloat. He hasn't had bloat with his fish, and he thinks it's because he pre-soaks. You just get a little bit of tank water in a cup, put your feeding amount in there, let it sit for a little bit. Not too long, because it'll just turn it to powder and mush, and the fish will not be able to eat it. John Wallace uses Extreme and Northfin. Yeah, I think those are a great combination. I know there was a little issue years ago with Northfin, but I think that got resolved. Just like New Life Spectrum. New Life Spectrum, I think, had too many fillers. There was a little bit of red residue left behind after a feeding, and sometimes some cloudiness. I think they've handled that. I think competitors came on the scene and put pressure on these companies to put out a cleaner, higher quality product, and I think you're seeing that with Northfin and New Life Spectrum. Everybody, it's like the way the market should work, right? So let's see here. Chase got an F1 Protomelis from the shack. I'm sure that's a beautiful fish. That is a beautifully colored fish. Well, and that is the bottom line test, isn't it, GP? Do the fish like it? Are they eating it? and how are they looking? Are they colorful? Are they, what's the reaction you're getting from the fish? That's the final test. Whenever I do any kind of a food review, the final part of the video is always, okay, let's do the fish test, because that is ultimately the real test. Anthony, she say they make legit little pumps. I agree, Anthony. Now you're not Jay Wilson operating under the name Anthony, right? I just want to make sure. I'm just kidding. I know you're not Jay Wilson. I like She Say a lot. I've got that She Say Shark Pro in the tank behind me. It's running like a champ, just runs like crazy. And my friend Daniel over in Las Vegas sent me the older shark. He had an old shark that he never used, and he just sent it to me. He said, look, I don't need it. You can have it. He mailed it to me. So I'll probably put another shark in one of the tanks pretty soon. I've got another 29 I'm going to set up. Probably put that shark in there. It's not a Shark Pro. It's the older one. Let's see. GP, blasting sand will require a lot of rinsing. Yep, I've heard that. I've seen some people use mixers. They'll get a drill and use like one of those big blending, big like a paint mixer, and they'll put it in there and run the hose and have that thing. Because I usually get a stick, right? Or I use my hands and I stir it up that way. And when you get 400 pounds of substrate and you're using your hands, by the end of cleaning that much substrate, my fingernails were separated from my skin. I was in terrible shape. So if I can come up with a different way to do it, I will. Chandra wants to know, is it necessary to run a canister 24/7? Yes. I would. I just run them. I wouldn't turn them on and off. I would just let them run. Now, if you're about to add a canister, or if you've turned off your canister, check the temperature of your tank. Then start your canister. And after several hours, check the temperature of your tank. And you'll be surprised. Canisters can increase your temp. This tank here has no heaters on it, and it runs at 80 to 81 degrees, no matter what the weather is outside. And I think it's that FX7, and it may be the She Say pump might be doing it, but it just stays at 80. So your equipment can be a source of heat. Those new little She Say Pros that use like 4 watts or 7 watts or 9 watts, the little Shark Pros, they probably produce no heat at all. I mean, they're just real small energy footprint. All right, let's see. Davey Larson, come on, people, strike the like button. Thank you, Davey. Davey's got my back. Chris G, we spend plenty of money on, don't we? Don't we? Too much. But you know what? Where would that money go otherwise? Right? I mean, I've talked to my wife about it sometimes. I say, yeah, I'm addicted to fish, but think of all the things I could be addicted to. I think fish are pretty good. So, all right. Any more questions for me about what's going on or what's been going on? Aquatic Amigos aluminum is the way to go. And I assume you're talking about those stands that I saw in Europe. Yes, I was very impressed. And I tell you what I liked about it the most, because I'm in a garage with a slightly sloping floor. It slopes towards the opening of the garage, which is great if you had a flood or something, if it's raining. But for leveling tanks, it's a nightmare. So if you've got real heavy-duty adjustable feet at the bottom of that aluminum stand, you can adjust it, make everything level, and give it a little turn, right, and get it just perfect, and then put the tank on it. Boy, oh boy, that would have really saved me a lot of work. Anthony, I like to build my own stands. Very cool. There are some great videos out there on on how to build them. I think Joey, the king of DIY, has a couple of them. And you know, my idea, of course, is when I do build one, because I'm thinking about building one and putting it where the planted tank is now. The you know, you overbuild them. You know, use 4x4s, use a little extra support. You know, just really overbuild them, and that way you're never going to worry about them. Oh, looks like someone just hit me with a. Oh, all right, Andrew. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that, all the way from India. Gabriel Ramirez, is there such a thing as too much vacuuming? I don't know. I mean, if you got a lot of gunk, I think with again, we're looking at different kinds of substrates, right? I mean, if you have sort of a larger sized pebble type substrate, right, or gravel, you're going to get a lot of junk that can settle down in there and really just build up a lot of muck, right? So pushing the siphon down into it and working it a little bit and watching all that gunk come up, right? Well, you're going to want to do that throughout the whole tank. When after you've cleaned it one time and you've seen how much gunk comes up. Now I'm talking about a larger pebble, right? A larger type of substrate. Don't do this with sand, because all you do is just suck sand up your hose, right? So, so you could vacuum a tank with the larger pieces of substrate for a long time, and still put it in there and pull out more gunk. I mean, it's just amazing how much can settle in there. With your sand, which is one of the reasons I love sand substrate, you can do just a very light, like an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch raking of the top of the sand, just very light, and then let whatever was broken loose settle, and then run the siphon about 1/2 inch off the surface of the sand, and everything will come up. And nothing gets in there because the sand is packed really tight, right? So you don't get a lot of, I mean, I imagine some gunk does get in there, but not anything to be really worried about. So depends on the substrate. I used to use a Carib Sea cichlid specific, they used to call it cichlid specific crushed coral substrate back in California. And when you looked at it, it had little pieces of coral, but it also had tons of shells in it, lots of shells. And man, oh man, I'd get in there and I'd push that siphon down to the bottom, and it was just never ending how much junk would come up. And I used to use those fluorescent light, those covers you put on a fluorescent light, and to support the weight of the rocks so that it doesn't really sit on the glass. Then I'd put the substrate over that, and so then the gunk would get in there on that grill, and man, it was just nasty under there. Now, all that being said, I use very strong wave makers to kick gunk up and direct the gunk towards the intakes of the filters. So that is my daily vacuuming is done by my wave maker that is directed in a way that it creates a sort of circular flow of gunk that then gets sucked up by the filters. That being said, you still get gunk that gets trapped in certain areas, like in a rock formation or along the base of a plant. You'll still get gunk that settles in pockets that the wave maker can't really stir up. So it's still a good idea to get in there occasionally and vacuum. And I do that with this tank. I'd say once every 2-3 weeks, I'll get in there and I'll touch up this tank, even though on a normal basis, when I do a water change, I don't vacuum because I have a 3,500 gallon per hour wave maker on a timer. I've got the FX6 blowing water around, and I've got the output which is 2,750 gallons per hour from the Shisei pump, the 9.0 Shisei pump. So there's a tremendous amount of flow, and it suspends the gunk. And you can see it. The pump's not on right now, or you'd see a lot of particles floating around. Usually, it comes on when I'm just about to film the tank. That's usually when the timer clicks and the wave maker goes on, and all of a sudden I have all the snow, and when I forget to unplug it before I film. So, all right, let's see here. Fishman hype, yeah, late night chat. I mean, I'm surprised. It was 6 hours ahead where I was, so it's getting on to 3 a.m. on the time that I was accustomed to just a couple days ago. I am acclimating, but it has been a little tough. I have fallen asleep several times watching TV programs. Like in the evening, I'll wake up and it's 10 p.m. All right, let's see. CC Custom Leatherworks. How you doing, CC? I was going to add a lightweight rock facade assortment, same ones you use on exterior of buildings, but tested it with an API nitrate tester #1, and it bubbled, meaning not good for fish. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. I wonder if you can run that test on just rocks in general. Like people find a rock out there, bring it home. I wonder if they can do that test on it. That's interesting. Chris G, Primetime Aquatics. Well, I like Jason. I respect his credentials, and he knows what he's talking about. I think him and Corey are probably the two people I would probably trust the most on YouTube. But I mean, come on, it's like you can't filter too much. Okay, so you want to put 10 canister filters on your 55-gallon? I mean, we have to inject. People will throw out a comment, but we it's up to us to inject some common sense into it and to go, okay, I've been vacuuming this tank for over an hour now. I don't seem to be getting any more gunk. Should I keep vacuuming because you can't vacuum enough? So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. So we have to sort of inject our own personal experience and just sort of common sense into it. And I'm sure if you watch Jason and Joanna work on the tanks, they're not spending more time than you would expect in vacuuming. They're probably doing a normal catching the sections that need it the most and touching it up, and they're not spending a tremendous amount of time vacuuming a lot of the tanks because they have so many. They'd spend all their time vacuuming, not do anything else. Trenton W., it must be earlier if you're having iced coffee. Hey, John, I'll see you, buddy. Let's see. Any more questions? Let me have it. Sirius is in Canada. Very cool. Been to Canada. Love Canada. Again, an area with a lot of friendly people. Fishy, are you asking me where I'm located? I am located, if you are asking me, I am in Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised in California, stayed there till I was 63 years old, and then came to Nashville, where my oldest daughter was living with her husband, hoping for a grandchild, and we got one. So here we are. All right. So I hope you folks can join me on Saturday. We'll go back to cichlids and coffee. Cichlids and Suds was interesting. Did you like that new logo that I came up with? The Cichlids Suds. My kids thought it was funny. And Before I end off, any other last questions? Anthony, I'm testing anoxic. I hear a lot about anoxic. I've never used it. I know there's a doctor, what's his name? He's a doctor of some kind, and he promotes that type of filtration, clay baskets and all kinds of stuff like that. Very, very cool. CC Custom Leatherworks, my African cichlids are starting to color up and grow out a bit. Worried about it, about infighting odds going up. Prompted me to consider more, tallish type rocks. Man, oh man, that is a debate that's been going on in the cichlid community for a very, very long time about decor. And I can get you as many people that will tell you that decor creates territories for the fish to fight over, as I can get people that say, no, you have to have something that will break the line of sight and places where fish can hide. And you can see the tank behind me. I used to have 2 big bundles of plants and a lot of, break the line of sight. And this is the most peaceful African cichlid tank I've ever had. And you can see there isn't much in there. I've got this one plant here and a pan across. It's just a little batch of rocks. That's it. So it's pretty bare, and there are a lot of very experienced. Let me go ahead and get this lens set up. There are a lot of very experienced cichlid keepers out there that'll tell you that go with nothing, go with just your substrate. So keep an eye on it. If a fish is extremely aggressive, I'd say pull them, because that's what I had to do with that OB behind me. That's what I had to do with that Zonatus behind me as well. Those 2 fish are probably going to end up at the local fish store. I don't know what to do with them. I'm going to use that tank to grow out other fish. So if you're in Nashville and you want a beautiful OB who can be a jerk, or you want a beautiful Vieja Zonatus also that can be a jerk, contact me. You put that Zonatus in with some fish that are bigger than he is, a lot bigger. I'd say maybe at least a third bigger. Maybe he'll be okay. Same thing with the OB. If he gets in with bigger fish, maybe he'll be okay. The only fish that he would go after and try and kill in the 210 was the bicolor 500, which is a little bit of a pygmy fish. And when you compare him to the other fish that are in there, the trout that's in there can get up to 15 inches. The bicolor 500 will probably max out at about 5.5 inches. So, being the bully, he would go after that bicolor 500 right away. And so I'd have to pull him right away. But anyway, if you think you can tame those fish and you're in the Nashville area, send me an email, ben.o.cichlid@gmail.com, and you can come over and you can have that fish. I'll give you one of those fish. Let's see here. But keep an eye on them. Pull the fish out that get overly aggressive, and just really stay on top of it. And you can try putting in some tall decor and see if it makes a difference. And I think you just have to keep working on it. You just keep working on it to go ahead and find the right combination of fish, and realize that as a cichlid keeper, you're going to have the willingness to rehome and offload certain fish. Even though you love them, even though they're beautiful, there may be times when you have absolutely no choice but to actually get rid of a fish. So that's unfortunately, part of keeping African cichlids. Okay, Shandor, please do product reviews, Seachem versus Fritz Aquatics. As many YouTubers recommend Seachem as first priority rather than... Oh, you're talking primarily... I think you're talking about water conditioners. You talk about water conditioners. I used Prime for years, loved it. I still use Safe, Seachem Safe, on the 300 gallon and the 210 and the 90. The 90 I do use for its complete, but I try and use the concentrated powdered form like Seachem Safe, because it just goes a long way, right? I think a quarter teaspoon will condition 300 gallons. 300 gallons with a teeny quarter teaspoon. So I use 2/4 of a quarter teaspoon to condition this giant tank behind me, right? So I think they're both great products. I like Fritz. I've talked to representatives of Fritz, and I love their philosophy. I love their commitment to quality. And Seachem also is a very, very reputable company. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. All right. Hey, Davey. Looks like Davey's going to be heading out. And Cat Sailor, thanks, Ben. Good stuff and good confirmation of things we do now in our hobby as well as the ABL stuff. Hey, thanks, Cat Sailor. Appreciate that. Joe, you might have arrived a little bit late. Unfortunately, the iBiter did not make it, and he has given up the ghost. And when I came back, I don't know, maybe the Kawingi was picking on him. They were in a very small hospital tank together. Under ideal conditions, I would have had them perhaps in one of these 55s divided or in a 29 divided, but they were in a very small tank. But like I said, it was always a struggle with that iBiter, always. And so I think that there may have been something, maybe something genetically not right, or some very, very stubborn parasite that never affected the other fish. I mean, the other fish were all, you can see they're doing great. So so anyway, it's sad. I was really hoping to really bring them around. I hate to lose the battle with the fish, but that kind of thing does happen. I will get another one along with a Fusco, a Buccochromis notitania, and I want to get a Starry Night. I want to get a White Lips. There's a few other fish I want to get my hands on to include in the 300 gallon, because it's such a massive tank from front to back that unless you've got 30 fish in there, it's going to look empty. So even big fish. So, all right. So I've taken up an hour of your evening. Nobody can nurse a beer like I can. It's still cold, surprisingly. Thank you for attending the first Cichlids and Suds. If you liked it, let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll do some more of them in the future. I do want to do them maybe at a different time, so I don't conflict with Jason over at prime time. I know he likes to go live on Wednesdays. So, but that's really it for me. Thank you for those super chats, my friends. Thank you to my wonderful moderators and to all of you who hit the like button and who have subscribed. Thank you for that support. And a big shout out to my to the members of the Garage Gang, those of you who are Patreons. Thank you so much for that support. So that's it. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Great to be home. Great to be back in touch with you. Good night.